Welcome to the Wild Simplicity Podcast, the podcast for awakening women who are ready to shed the layers, let go of the clutter, and rediscover their wild and wonderful selves that lie beneath. I'm Anna Day, and together we'll explore how to simplify, release what's no longer serving us, and embrace the possibility of living fully in this one wild and precious life. Whether you're a dreamer, a seeker, or someone who craves doing things differently, this space is for you. Let's dive in and awaken the magic within. Hello and welcome back to the Wild Simplicity Podcast. This is Anna, and today we are going to be talking about language. I am in the depths of preparing my language alchemy masterclass, which I'm running in 2 weeks' time. I'm so excited. I adore this work. I adore speaking about language and words and how we're using them. And this is a workshop I ran a few years ago. So I'm reviewing notes from that, and I am delving into other parts and things I've learned over the years since I ran that. This will be on the 26th of February, and it's called Language Alchemy, Speak Your Power into Being. And it's a masterclass all about language, the words we use, how the words we use make us feel, how the words we use make others feel about us. And it's all about awareness. The whole thing really is about awareness, because these words that we use to speak to ourselves and to speak to others they're prolific in our language, and particularly among women. I notice a lot of these words being used and filler phrases and language that makes us appear smaller, that we have been taught to use and conditioned to use because we have been conditioned to be small, appeasing, pleasing, the good girl, nice, all those things. And as a result, we use language to solidify that persona, that belief, that way of being that we've taught to be. And so I have a real deep passion about speaking about this, because this is one element that can help us break out of these ways of being in the world. And language is so powerful. Language is words cast spells. And I love speaking about language. I love learning about my own language, what I'm using, noticing, and particularly speaking on a podcast and online and using words and noticing where I am using words that I don't necessarily want to be using, and that I notice afterwards because I've just been speaking and chatting away. And it's a really fun, if you can make it a fun game rather than anything to shame or guilt you or create any sort of bad feelings. Like this is not for coming down hard on ourselves and berating ourselves and shaming ourselves for using this language. Because once we start to notice these types of words that make us feel smaller, that make our work feel smaller, make our whole sense of being smaller, cower, all these things. Once we start to notice those, then we can see it everywhere. We hear it everywhere. We see them everywhere. And I'm talking about words and phrases like but more so you hear a lot of people online saying, I'm just going to pop on and tell you a little bit of something about my work. And I'll just quickly be here. I'm not going to take up too much space. And this apologizing for ourselves. And there's so much language we use that is apologetic and not taking up space, not taking up our place in the world, not showing presence and power. And that's what I really want to bring back and draw our attention to as women in the world who are here to be leaders in our families, in our homes, in our communities, in our work, wherever we are leaders, and we are showing the next generations what it's like to be a woman in the world, and how it's so important for us to change the narrative, to change the narrative for ourselves, change the way we've shown up, change the way we've been showing up for ourselves and for each other, and bring our ideas into the world as well, bring our ideas and our work and our wisdom and all of these things. And I hear women speaking such wise words, and those wise words can be watered down sometimes because the language used to convey that gnosis and that wisdom is tentative, and I'm not so sure, and apologetic. And I really have this passion for us as women to stand in our truth and to learn and to practice and to hold each other in compassion and love as we learn this and as we unlearn all the conditioning that tells us to be small, to hide, to stay quiet, all those different things. So there's a whole wealth of language that these are words that aren't necessarily going to be decluttered fully, but it's like having, 200 blue biros. Do you need 200 blue biros? No, you probably don't. You need some. You might need about 20 if you're an avid journaler like I am. And therefore, 80 biros can be decluttered. This is like these words. These words are still going to be present in our language, but we're not going to be using them. We're going to be using them in context. We're going to be using them as they were intended. So words like, or phrases like kind of and sort of, almost, and using those words, continuing to use those words, but within the right context and with the correct definition and meaning, rather than saying, I kind of think that, I sort of mean, it's what do you mean and what do you want to say? So deleting these phrases from our speech and our vocabulary can mean we say things the way we want to say them. We come across more definitive, and for ourselves as well, knowing and believing in ourselves. And it's really important. So this masterclass is going to be all about the awareness. And the awareness, once the awareness comes, we start to notice, as I was saying, like it's everywhere. These words are everywhere. They're infused in us because the women around us are using them. We're hearing them all the time. We're hearing them online. We're hearing them from our families, from our friends. They're everywhere. So we have to bear that in mind, that it'll take time to undo what we've been taught. But the awareness is key, because once the awareness is there, then everything else comes. Then they drop off and we start to really be aware of ourselves. And there are other things we can do as well, obviously, for helping have a sense of ourselves, have self-love, self-worth, lots of things, and subconscious beliefs. All of these weave into the language we use as well. So there are many elements to it. And I'll be speaking about the energetics of it as well. Like energy is such an important part of all this. And for me, this thread of language and communication has run throughout my life since I was, and some of you will know the story of my mum giving me the Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway book by Susan Jeffers when I was about 13 or 14. And from that point on, I was a very shy child. I rarely spoke, didn't really speak up in groups, didn't speak up in class and school. I wasn't one of the ones who had my hand up all the time to answer the questions. I hid behind my parents when we went into public spaces. I wouldn't go into the shops. My mum and dad would ask myself and my sister, anyone want to go and get the milk? And I would just sit there, would not want to go in. My sister would be like, me, I want to go in. She's younger than me, 2.5 years, and she would go in. And I would just not want to. I'd be delighted that she would have volunteered. And this was just part of who I was. And it is still, that personality and that essence of me is still there. However, when I started reading that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, when I was in my early teens, I realized that our personality is not set in stone, that we get to change. We get to decide who we are in this world. And I learned all about the conditioning, and over the years, I've learned more and more about that, and us as women in this world, and how we are heavily conditioned to be a certain way. And it doesn't have to be that way, that we still get to keep our beautiful personality, deep essence, deep inner potent being, and our soulful self. But this protective self, all these protective layers and shields get to drop away, and we get to shine fully as ourselves, as our essence. And all these things we've learned to protect us and to keep us safe were all necessary and all needed. However, now they are no longer needed, and we can decide and choose and really be sovereign in this. And so I went through a whole, in my teens, reading and devouring self-help books and self-development books and personal development and all that range. And I used to, scutter into the bookshops, and I don't know if you couldn't buy books online then. So it was only in going to bookshops I could access these books, or in the library. And I would, very, very meekly look at the shelves and then, pretend I was looking at the travel section adjacent to the personal development section. If anyone came up beside me, totally mortified and feeling shameful that I would need to look at these books of personal development, because I looked around and it looked like everyone else had their shit together. Not true. And so I read loads of these books on confidence, on assertiveness, on fear, on anything to do with personal development and outlook and the mindset, subconscious beliefs, anything like that, devoured, and kept doing so in my 20s. And I started to gain more confidence and realize that I could change things about myself, change the way I showed up in the world, somatically as well, like what I would do in my body. And practices I could do. Amy Cuddy and her power pose helped me a lot in my 20s when I was going for job interviews, and loads of that very holistic perspective. And then I went more into somatics and into trauma healing and delving deeper into where all these beliefs were coming from. I was feeling quite stuck a lot of the time. I was feeling like, why can't I change? Why have I been doing so many works, like saying all the affirmations, reading all the books, doing all the things, and I'm still feeling stuck? And in recent years, I have found a multitude of ways to really get into the nitty gritty and get down to the self-belief and the self-worth and the self-love of who I am, the human that I am here and gifted with in this lifetime to be here with, and the soul that I am, and really having a reverence for how we are as humans. Like, we are all amazing, magical beings. And the more I can understand this, and the more, I've heard this for years, and I was saying that last week, I think, in the podcast, that this soulful self, and we are divine and we are divinity and all of this stuff. I heard all these words. I heard for a number of years, but I think until you find a way to assimilate it and to embody it, it's very different. They're two very different things. Holding something cognitively, but then holding an embodiment of that thing. So all of this language and communication has been a thread. I became a speech and language therapist then. So I was, learning how children acquire language, how we acquire language from being in utero to being born, being a baby, and how what we're surrounded with impacts us. And then how I was teaching parents how to interact with their little kids, their 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. I worked with early years. I loved early years because I found that acquisition of language fascinating, and seeing how children are so tuned in to their world around them, and they learn through play. And that's all a huge area of fascination for me. Although I'm not currently practicing as a speech and language therapist, it really shaped a lot of who I am. And I love that work. I loved learning about the psychology of it all, the psychology of language, the linguistics as well. Not so hot on the actual mechanics and mathematics of linguistics, but really of, the etymology of words and all of that. It fascinates me. And I did in my 20s and earlier 20s, I did an assertiveness course. So again, around language and how we are as well showing up in the world. And that was amazing and very, very intensive and very tender and took a lot of courage for me to go to, because I joined a class, an in-person class on assertiveness. And there were a bunch of us that went through it together over a number of weeks. And it was really moving and really amazing. And then I did NLP as well. So I did some course on neuro-linguistic programming, how we communicate, how our, again, body movements, eye tracking, everything. It was just so fascinating to me, all of this. So this language alchemy masterclass is a culmination of all of these things, and all I've read and all I've learned and all of I've been changing within myself and developing with myself and practicing, and how I have come from shy child, unable to speak, to now being able to speak on my own podcast, on other podcasts, to be able to speak in front of groups of people for when I'm giving my talks, and to be showing up online and sharing my work with the world. And that has taken time, practice, awareness, and it's magical and it's doable. And it's not just for some of us. It can be accessed by all of us when we are emboldened with the belief that we matter, that we can change, that we have agency and sovereignty over who we are. And it's amazing. I'm so passionate about it. I really want as many women as possible to know about this. And no matter if you have a business or not, if you are a stay-at-home mom, if you are in the corporate world, wherever you are in and around people every day. And how we communicate to those people matters. How we communicate to ourselves matters. How you communicate when you look at yourself in the mirror matters. How you communicate to yourself as you're going about your day to day, and what you're saying to yourself out loud or in your head as well. So it's all really important. So the more we become aware of the words we're using and how they are impacting us, it opens up a whole new world of possibility to us, and of what we get to be in this lifetime of. And we get messages then of from our higher self, and we can open up and clear out, declutter all that crap that's there. Same as physical declutter in our physical environment. When we're decluttering, letting go and simplifying, getting rid of the crap, getting rid of the shit, it just clears and makes things. You can start to see around, and there's an openness, a spaciousness, and the same with our language. And then we realize we can start to get clearer on why we're here in this lifetime, why we are put on earth at this time. And even if you don't want to delve into those questions, it's the sense of self you get, the sense of agency, of self-worth, of control, although I'm hesitant to use the word control because control can be as well, but it does give us a sense of choosing. We get to choose. We get to choose how we show up in the world. We get to choose who we want to be in this world. We are led to believe we have very little choice in who we are, and because our environment and our circumstances, but there are a number of things that we can get into and retell some stories about ourselves. It's our brains are so, I just love it so much. Our brains are so conditioned. Our mind is so laden with lies. They're all lies. They're lies. And when you find out that they're lies and you realize they're lies, anything becomes possible. Anything becomes possible. And I can't wait to share this work. It's so close to my heart. And it's such a big part of my day to day as well, how I interact in the world, how I wake up to myself every day, like literally wake up, and what I say to myself first thing in the morning, what I say to myself last thing at night, when I do my morning pages, as you know, I do those in the morning, the language I use in those morning pages, and it's not gatekeeping, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's not to gatekeep. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's not to control our language. It's like I let everything out onto the page. I let we don't want to, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't want to stifle ourselves. It's not to hold back. So my invitation is to, when you are aware of these words that you're using and that I'll outline in the masterclass, and I'll give you a number of examples and everything. When we start to see that, it's not to then don't speak at all for fear of using these words, and you don't want to be using these words. No, we keep using these words, we keep speaking freely, and we become gradually more and more aware of the words we're using. And we can, the more and more embodied we get, the more present we can feel, the more not attached to ourselves, the more embodied, the more in ourselves, present here, that I'm speaking to you now, that I can access both the fact that I'm here sitting on this chair embodied, and I can also access the fact that I'm saying things in real time. It allows for me to be with myself and to notice myself in real time. And that's magic as well. So there's so many threads and avenues that all weave into this, and it's amazing. It is truly amazing. So if you'd like to come and join us on this adventure of a lifetime on the 26th of February, which I've just realized today is right before the old fire horse kicks in on the 27th. And so a last flurry of decluttering. And it won't be the last flurry of decluttering. Decluttering is ongoing. It's a way of life. Simplifying is my way of being. But that's on the 26th of February, which is a Thursday at 7:30 until about 8:45. And you can book on the link in my bio for my Instagram. It's not on my website, but go to my Instagram at Wild Simplicity, and you will see it in my link in bio there. And I'll be putting it on my stories as well, so you can book through my stories when I put those up. And if you have any questions, send me a message. And you can email me hello@annaday.ie, or you can message me on Instagram at Wild Simplicity. And if you want to go on my mailing list, you can do so by clicking on, I'll put the link in the show notes here, but it's also in my Instagram bio. You'll see you can get a free PDF of things to download, not download, you can download it, but things to declutter in your home. It's the gentle guide to simplifying, and it's a starting guide of how you can set intentions, how you can start decluttering in your home basically, or restart your decluttering journey if you've already started. So that's there and available, and you'll hear then about any future offers from me. And get in touch if you're curious and you just want to know more, you're starting to realize words you're using or phrases you use. Please get in touch. I love talking about this. Love it, love it, love it. And I'll be back here next time. I'll be back here next week with some more. In the meantime, go forth, create your awareness, love yourself, be kind to yourself, be gentle, and keep exploring your wild simplicity. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this journey to wild simplicity. If today's episode inspired you to let go, simplify, and reconnect with your truest self, I would love for you to share it and help spread the word. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and follow along on Instagram at Wild Simplicity for more inspiration. Remember, life is precious and you have the power to live it fully, freely, and fiercely. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep seeking, and keep embracing the wild possibilities of life.